everybody, and welcome to another Kimberbell Dealer Design exclusive project video. This month, the month of July, we actually had 2 designs that became available, and this one is our holiday focused design. So this is perfect for starting the creation of the gifts that you want to give away. This little cinch sack that you see here in this picture is perfect for holding gift cards, small goodies, little gifts, things along that lines. Perfect for almost anyone on your list. So let's take a look at what we need to do and the things that we need for this project. First, you need to know there are 2 variations of this project, one of which is Santa mail and the other one is bag of coal. I today am going to be stitching bag of coal, but the images in the presentation will be featuring Santa mail. That's why I've decided to do the coal, because there's not any pictures for you in the instructions, just a list of how-tos. So between the instructions and this video, you'll know how to make both. So let's take a look. You're going to need fabric, okay? The base fabric for your bag. You have a choice of fabrics, okay? The Santa mail is done in a solid cream color, okay? And then bag of coal is done with the black and white polka dot, okay? We have kits available at this time for this project until they are sold out. So hopefully you'll be able to grab one before they're gone. Out of your bag fabric, you need 2 pieces that are 6 inches wide and 15 inches long, okay? So you could do this out of 1/4 yard. You could also do it out of fat quarters, okay? On one of them, well, both of them, you're gonna fold in half, okay? So that they are 6 inches wide and about 7.5 inches tall, okay? On one of them, we're going to unfold and we're going to apply a piece of fusible woven backing to one side of it. This is going to be the side that gets embroidered, okay? You could make your bag out of 2 different fabrics. The fabric on the front, and this would be the fabric that you would see on the back of your bag. So don't have enough to do both? There's nothing wrong with making this out of 2 different fabrics. Our stabilizer today is going to be our light mesh cutaway. And here at Material Girls, we work in the land of OESD. So we are using OESD's poly mesh. We have this in white, black, or beige. Any of those colors would work perfect for this project. I would probably stay with white for the Santa mail, but black, beige, or white will be perfectly fine for bag of coal if you opt to do it in dark fabric. We're going to be using a hoop that fits 5x7 designs. So again, in the Bernina world here at Material Girls, we are going to use our large ovals. We are going to put 1 piece of stabilizer in the hoop, and we're going to put the hoop on the machine and open up on the machine the appropriate design of our choice. So I'm going to go ahead and have on my machine, I have the bag of coal design open. We are going to put neutral colored thread in the bobbin for this project. And on my upper thread for the beginning of this project, I have set in white. Okay, we got to do some bag placement and some tack down first. So let's go. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to stitch a cut line. Okay, now this cut line, this is kind of where I vary from Kimberbell's instructions. Okay, so depending upon what we're doing here, okay, that was all your prep. Load your file. We're going to stitch this cut line. Now in your instructions, that cut line tells you to cut it. Don't cut it, okay? Just hold off and we'll cut it in a little bit. Now that we have that line stitched, we're going to go ahead and proceed with the next color stop, which is going to stitch us this open-ended rectangle, and then we'll get our fabric in place. Now that our stitching or placement lines are stitched, we're going to go ahead and take the hoop off the machine and we're going to place our fabric. Now that our placement line is stitched, this is that cut line we're not going to cut. We have this rectangle. We're going to take the piece of fabric that we have fused the fusible woven to. We're going to fold it here so that it's right sides together. And we're going to align the folded edge up with the cut line, the uncut cut line. Okay, we want to make sure that the rest of our project extends past and beyond the placement line. If we're all good there, we're going to open this up. I'm just going to put a piece of tape right down here at the bottom. We're going to carefully return this to the machine and we're going to run the tack down line. It is going to stitch down the side across the bottom. This bit that it stitches across the top is going to be some basting lines that we will pick out in a later step. Okay. Here comes that basting stitch. Now, if you are doing Santa mail in this project, the next step of Santa mail is to start working through the embroidery of the decorative front. The main thing I want to point out here is in the first step, she tells you to change your bobbin thread to match the top. I highly suggest you do this. There is some very small stitching that's going to happen, and it's possible for your bobbin thread to come up to the top if you have two different colors in. So it could become very visible. So leave that black bobbin thread in until she tells you in a future step to change it back to your neutral thread. And we'll do that in just a moment. I'll remind you. Now, if you're doing the bag of coal, I'm going to leave right now, I'm going to leave it as the neutral color bobbin. I'm going to leave white thread up top, and we're going to be stitching a placement line for us to place our glitter. Okay, with our placement line stitched, we're going to take this off the machine. We're going to come on over here and we're going to work with glitter. So the applique glitter sheets that we have that are going to fit here, they come attached to a piece of plastic. We want to remove the plastic, okay, from the project. Now I think for the most part, I think that's going to be big enough, so I'm going to save this piece still attached to plastic for another project. And we're going to lay this glitter side up, covering the placement line that's there. You can, if you'd like, put a piece of tape in there to hold it in place. Okay. We're going to return it to the machine and we're going to stitch it. She does give you on page 10 of the instructions the step-by-step settings for the bag of coal. There's just not picture graphics. We're going to let that stitch down. Now, for those that are doing the Santa mail, you're going to be using a piece of black leather. So you're going to stitch your placement line there in gray step 11. You're then going to place your leather right side up, covering that sleigh placement. You will tack it down and then trim your leather. Okay? Once you have trimmed your leather, you can change back to the neutral color bobbin thread, because from here on out we're going to be doing larger stitching, and it really won't affect that problem. Now, when our glitter is finished, we are going to remove the hoop from the machine, and we are going to trim the excess glitter from the edge of this project. Trimming some of those little jagged edges where I didn't exactly stitch this, clip the smoothest. We are going to heat the iron because we need to glue this glitter down. Okay, this is a large piece of glitter and we don't want it bubbling on us. We are going to put some stitching into it, but we still want to hold it down. Now, we don't want to put the iron directly on this glitter, so you want to use a pressing sheet. I'm just going to grab my other piece of fabric that I have. I'm going to lay it on top of my glitter. I'm going to get my hot iron and I'm going to put it on an ironing board, Amy, before you ruin your mat. 1 second. There we go. And I'm going to press for about 15 to 20 seconds. And I'm going to press, okay? Just don't set your iron there. You do want to give it a little bit of elbow grease here while we get that to adhere and heat up the glue and melt it and attach it to the fabric. Okay, that feels pretty good. Now, I'm going to return this to the machine and we are going to change our thread color to black to start stitching the words on our project. Now, make sure that when you put anytime you're doing these, you put this back on the machine, that this excess fabric doesn't get wrapped underneath. Okay, we don't want to accidentally stitch through something that we needed. Okay, I'm going to switch to black thread on top, still keeping it neutral. Okay, and then we're going to begin embroidering the word bag of, and then we're going to continue on for, let's see, looks like 6 or 7 color stops in the black thread. If you are doing Santa's mail, we are going to start with red thread, and we will begin with the word Santa. Santa mail will change to black, do the postmark, go back to red, and do North Pole, and then do the satin outline. Now, you still have black thread in your machine. What I would do is I would skip ahead to color stop 8, stitch your mail service and postmark detail. Okay, once that's complete, back up to color stop 7, change out to red thread, stitch out the word Santa mail, then skip ahead to color stop 9 and continue on with your North Pole detail and your buttonholes. Just saves you a couple of threading stops. Completely optional. The reason it's done this way is maybe you don't want Santa mail in red. You want to do it in a different color. So the option is there for you to be able to make everything a different color. Okay? And continue on with those of you that are doing Santa mail with all the way up to your buttonholes. Those of you doing bag of coal, we're going to go back here to the machine. We are going to stitch the word bag of, the word coal. We're going to do the inner circle detail, the word Santa, the word approved, try again, and next year. I'm going to do this all in black, but again, all those color stops are set up for you so that you could do this in a larger variety of thread colors. Now, cinch sacks are not a new project design from Kimberbell. She actually has a few collections of cinch sacks. I believe they are mostly retired now, hopefully to come back soon in the vault. I know that we do have a few of her woodland creatures cinch sack collection still available in our store, but the other ones, she had a holiday version, so there were some additional Christmas and Halloween designs. She had some gift giving that were, you know, floral, things along that lines as well. So there were a couple of collections. I'm going to go ahead and continue on in black to do the word coal. All right, I'm going to continue on in black for color stop 8. It's going to do the inner circle. Okay, color stop 9 will remain black. We're going to stitch the word Santa. Again, feel free to make these any color that you want. That's why all the color stops are in there for you. Now, while that's stitching, if you have not tried a Wonder Guard with your embroidery thread, I highly suggest that you do it with the tiny little single outline stitching that the design does. I'm going to go ahead and push go again. With the word Santa, the word with mail service and everything, it's very small. And if you experience getting loops and things like that in your embroidery, you may want to try a Wonder Guard. We have these in our online store. They're from Wonderfill. They kind of replace a thread net. So typically we would use a thread net, but they stretch out, they're too big, you know, they don't stay where they belong. So a Wonder Guard is, you're going to pull your thread out and you're going to wrap the Wonder Guard around your thread. Keep your thread tail out. You don't want it super tight, but you also don't want it too loose because then it will come off. But get it wrapped and then I can make adjustments. Okay, just like that. My thread is now coming up out of the top. This guard is just holding the thread tight to the spool or giving it a little bit more tension so that as this feeds into the back of the machine, it will stay taut and not droopy. And sometimes that droopy is why you have loops and some uneven tension in your design. So just a little bit about Wonder Guards. Continuing on still with black thread for color stop 11. Our final color stop in black, color stop 12, the word next year. Okay, now that our black stitching is finished, we're going to change to white or whatever color you would like to stitch the decorative stitching through the middle of the word coal. So there is a line of triple stitch that is going to go through the middle of that stitching. All right, now we are switching to our red thread to stitch, let's see, 3 color stops in red. We are going to stitch the outer circle detail, the little swirl detail underneath, try again next year, and then we have buttonholes to stitch. Once my buttonholes are complete, I'm going to switch back to black thread for the assembly of our bag. At this point, both designs are the same. So whether you're doing Santa mail or bag of coal, we are at the point after the buttonholes that everything is done identically. First, we're going to remove this basting stitch across the top of this bag. So we just need to pick that out there. And then we're going to very carefully cut open our buttonholes. So we want to do that carefully. And we're going to use a seam ripper, but I'll show you. Okay. Basting stitch is gone. I can get rid of that thread here. Now, to cut open your buttonhole, I'm going to use my seam ripper. I'm going to carefully put it in to the fabric and the stabilizer, and then I'm going to cut just up to the top of that stitching. You don't want to cut through either ends of that stitching right there. If you do not trust yourself, you could take a pin and get it across that top there, so that when you run your seam ripper in there, your seam ripper won't cut through that pin, and that'll keep you from accidentally cutting your bar tack of your buttonhole. Oh, buttonhole is open. All right, now this is the point in time where I would cut this line. Again, I'm just going to use a seam ripper. I'm going to very carefully cut along that stitching, and I'm going to cut approximately a ½ inch beyond. But what our goal is we're actually going to slide this fabric through this hole, and we want to try and get it large enough so that this fabric will lay flat. So we don't want any wrinkles or anything there. And then we're going to turn our hoop over. We're going to pull that down, and we're going to tape at the bottom, and I'm going to turn back over, and I need to tape across the top here. I want to hold this hole shut, and I'm going to do that, but I also just want to barely grab my fabric. I'm holding that shut for security purposes. Oops. Just like that. We are going to return this to the machine, and we are going to tack down the front of the bag. So it's going to stitch this rectangle again, and then we're going to pop it off, and we're going to make sure that this piece stayed where it belonged. Okay. Before I do the next step, which is going to stitch me the ribbon casing above and below my buttonhole, above and below the buttonhole, I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to make sure that everything stayed flat, nothing folded over. Okay. We're going to stitch across the top. This is going to give us our casing for us to be able to put in our ribbon. That's why I like to just barely catch the top. I don't like my top stitching to be caught in that tape. Okay, now we are going to pop that off. We're going to come over here. We are going to grab our other piece of fabric that we have. We're going to unfold it. We're going to lay it right sides together. We're going to match the sides and the bottom, just like this. You can tape it in place if you would like, but we are then going to return this to the machine, and we're going to stitch that same rectangle again. That's going to hold this piece in place. Now, once that's stitched, we're going to take that off again. We are going to open up this hole. We're going to slide this piece through that hole, make sure it lies flat, and again bring it down, make sure it goes beyond that line, add it to the tape, and then again tape your hole shut. So we have on the front and on the back. We're going to return this to the machine. What it's going to do now is it's going to stitch a little bit here, cut the thread, come down, stitch down and across. And it's going to leave a hole in the bottom for us to turn things right side out. And these holes that it leads here is for our ribbon casing. Final step of stitching for this project. That's why you want to tape that hole shut so your presser foot doesn't get caught in it. Once our design is complete, we are going to remove the hoop from the machine. We are going to remove the project from the hoop. Okay. We're now going to trim the two long edges 1/4 inch from the stitching and the bottom edge 1/4 inch from the stitching. Do not trim the fold. Okay? Do not trim at the top of this project. 1/4 inch down the sides and across the bottom. And you can also remove any tape. We're also going to clip our corners to reduce any bulk that we have. So when you clip your corners to reduce the bulk, you're going to not only clip diagonally across the corner, but you also want to trim again from the corner up about 1 inch on each side, because that's going to eliminate these side seam allowances trying to cram into this corner as well. Okay, so you can see across the corner and then also up away from the corner. At this top edge, I'm only going to grade from the fold down. I don't want to clip into this fold. If we clip into this fold, you're going to have a hole in the bottom of your bag, or the top of your bag, excuse me. All right, so like I said, this is a 2-turn project. We are going to turn right side out through the hole in the bottom. Okay, here. Get my point and press out here so that I can push out my corner. Trim any threads. This is the lining side of your bag. So if you didn't want to see this bit of stitching, I would make your bobbin thread match your fabric for the entire project. So this hole in the bottom of this bag, you're going to fold under and stitch shut. I'm going to fold this under, and you can hand stitch it if you would like, or you can use, this is some double-sided fusible tape. So it's like really thin heat and bond, really skinny heat and bond, that I'm going to cut a piece big enough for here. I'm going to slide it in here. I'll iron that in place, and then I will peel off the paper and iron this shut. Okay. Let me get my iron here. While that heats up, you're also going to need to get yourself 2 pieces of ribbon that is at least 16 inches long. Just ironing that down. Reach in here. I'm going to carefully peel off that paper. You can see that glue is inside there. Line that up. And seal it shut. You could, if you wanted as well, go back and sew a little tiny seam allowance, do a little zigzag, but it is going to make the bottom of your bag a little funky. And then once this cools here, I'm going to turn this all right side out through the top of our bag. Now, there is an optional step that we can do here. It is completely optional. You know, the front of our bag has a casing on it to slide the ribbons in, but the back of our bag does not. And so here is, it's hard to see, but there's that 2 lines of stitching that were stitched right here, but the back of our bag does not. So if you wanted the back to also have a casing, so you can see I did it on this bag. So here's our front casing. I stitched one on the back so that it matches the front. You can do the steps in the instruction here that says they're not necessary, but they'll cinch shut without the casing, but it looks nicer if you do it. You make the casing, do the extra step. So all you would do is mark on here right above and below where the line is. So I kind of open it up to the side. Okay, kind of open it up and I put a little line at the top and the bottom of each buttonhole, and then did the same thing over here, and then drew a line to connect those 2 lines. So as you can see, they've marked the 2 lines above and below the buttonhole there. And then using your marker, you will connect the lines. And then you're going to take it over to the sewing machine. Slide it on the free arm of your machine because we only want to sew through the back of this project. So we only want to sew through this side. So don't fold it and stitch it because then you're going to sew it shut. We only want to sew on the back side. So if you have a free arm on your sewing machine, you can slide this on your free arm, or when you're stitching, just make sure that that bottom piece stays out of the way. And then we will repeat on both lines so that we now have a casing on both sides. Our next step is going to be to insert the ribbon for the drawstring. And so you're going to take your 2 pieces of ribbon and you are going to use a little safety pin. These are little tiny buttonholes. Little safety pin. Something that's got to be able to go through those buttonholes right there. We're going to put the safety pin through both pieces of ribbon and then slide it in one buttonhole through the front casing and out the other side. I'm going to take the safety pin off and I'm going to pull so that one ribbon is long on the right hand side and one ribbon is long on the left hand side. We are going to take the longer ribbon on each side, but I'm going to start with one side at a time. I'm going to put my safety pin through. I'm going to take that longer ribbon. I am going to go into the back casing. Now it's right here on the side where there's an opening in the side seam that it didn't stitch. And I'm going to feed this all the way around to the other side until it comes out the side casing over here. Sometimes it takes a minute to find. Safety pin gets knotted to the short ribbon on the other side. Then I'm going to take the long ribbon that's on that side, put the safety pin through it, and feed it through that back casing, starting on the left, working to the right. I can't feed that way, so I have to flip the bag. Okay. Again. Now that. I don't like to tie them in knots until I have them on the sides I need them. That way I can fiddle with this ribbon that needs to be fed in yet. I can make sure everything stays even. There we go. Now I can tie a knot. You can make these ribbons as long as you want and then trim them down. Okay. And there is your cinch sack. Okay. So this one here, I'll repeat it again. I'm not going to sew a back casing in this bag, just so you can see the difference between them. I'm going to go in the front with both ribbons attached to the safety pin. Okay. Grab your ribbon, make one short and one long on each side. Longer ribbon on the safety pin. Feed in the back hole. Now there's no casing here, so you just kind of hold on to it as you feed it across. And get it to come out. Oh, there's a... Okay. Long ribbon. Feed in the back. There it is. Get my ends lined up. Tie my knots. Fingers are not cooperating today. Clean up my ends here. If you're using a grosgrain ribbon, you could melt the end of the ribbon, but if you're using a woven like this ribbon is, don't take an iron to it. Just cut it at an angle. You can put a little bit of fray check on there if you want. Okay, and so you can see when you don't put a casing in the back, it's hard to see in this light because I did it in black. It's not quite as scrunched as it is around the top here as it is with the casing in the back side. But otherwise, it's still going to hold anything that you put in it. There's nothing coming out of this bag. And there are your 2 Santa cinch sacks for the holiday season. Well, I hope that you guys enjoyed today's project and that we will see you soon. We will be back in August for an October-themed project with Kimberbell Dealer Design Exclusives. So thank you everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you real soon.